Welcome to the second part of our lecture today, Touring the Library of Congress, A World of Knowledge, Part 2. In the Part 2, last time, in Part 1, we talk about two things. We talk about the history. We also talk about the art and architecture. Now, we are going to start with the Part 3, which is collections and services of the Library of Congress. Because the library was established for the members, so they have a members room, pretty big. You might remember last time when I showed you the floor map, on one of the wings, there is a large room called the members room. It has also beautiful decoration on it. So it has oak wood paneling, it has ceiling panels, it also has a beautiful marble mantle and mosaic panels. Let's just take a closer look of some of the beautiful art decoration. So there is a mosaic panel. There are two of them. So the one we're looking at, I can make it bigger. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this one is called History. It has many names you probably all can recognize, like historians and historical figures in history. And this reflects mostly Western history. Can you recognize some of those Asian cultures? We have the pyramid, we have the Greek temples, we also have Roman architecture. Here we have different plants. It all has something to do with history. I was lucky one time when I was visiting, the door was open, so I managed to go in to see some of those beautiful decorations. Now they not only use it for the Congress people, sometimes they will have seminars there. So if you're lucky, sometimes you can go inside. They also have beautiful ceiling panels. So for example, this particular one is called Light of Truth. See this, this goddess was holding a mirror, and the light shining from the mirror is down to the floor of this little guy here. He represents ignorance. So this is called the Light of Truth. See, this goddess was using her mirror, and it's surrounded by all those little angels, and all of them are reading. See, all those babies are holding a book, reading together. It's really gorgeous. So if you have a chance, please go there to check it out. The mission of the Library of Congress is to engage and inspire and inform Congress and the American people with a universal and enduring source of knowledge and creativity. To achieve this, and they have several functions. First of all, they are the research service for the U.S. Congress. So although it's a closed shelf library, usually you cannot borrow books from there, take home, but congressmen could. So because they are serving the Congress, so the congressional staff can come here, do some research, or even borrow books from them. And the second function that we talked about last time is the home of the Copyright Office of the United States. So all the publications are sent there if you're registered in this country. Like my book is published in a foreign country, they don't have one. They don't have to necessarily to have one sent by the Copyright Office, but you can donate one. And it also serves as the National Library for the blind and physically handicapped, usually visually handicapped. It's also the home of the poet laureate. So I think every year or every other year, they will elect one. And they also have a young readers ambassador. Every other year, they elect one. Their collection's very, very impressive. It's the largest library in the world. So it has 173 million items. That's just of last year, because we don't have the number for this year yet. And among those, more than 25 million are cataloged books. They also have things they called non-classified print collections, 15.7 million of these. These are books with large print or raised characters, or incunabula, which is books printed before 1501. They also have monographs and series and bound newspapers. In addition to this, the largest part of this collection actually is not necessarily books, traditional books. They have 132.7 million special collections, which include audio, manuscript, maps, microphones, moving images, sheet music, other visual material, and 2 million others, which include today's especially machine readable items. So this gigantic collection. You might wonder, where do they get all the sources for their collection? So first of all, we said it's the copyright deposit. Since 1870, we talked about last time, very clever librarian tried to consolidate all the copyright issues when they submit. They now all go to the Library of Congress. So that's one of the very big resources. And the second part is they have very many exchanging agreements with more than 15,000 foreign governments and research institutions that also started more than a century ago. So they do exchange material with those organizations worldwide. They also receive gifts. So for example, if you publish a book on your own, or you know a book is not published in this country, but you think the library should have it, you can buy it and donate to them. Of course, they will use their own policy to judge whether it's worth keeping. And also Congress every year gave them appropriation to money to purchase important books. Then they also receive transfers from other U.S. government agencies. So based on all those 5 different kinds of sources, what they have is every day they receive more than 20,000 items every day. So more than 10,000 of those items. When I say items, not that necessarily only books, it could be anything we just talk about. So almost half, or a little bit less than half, will become permanent collection. They said, you might say, wait a minute, where does the other items go? So they have many places, they never waste them. So first, we talk about those exchange programs. So foreign governments or domestic organization gave things to the library. Sometimes they will give to them in return if they think it's more appropriate for them to have. or they could transfer to other libraries. You know, there's 4 national libraries are not inside the Library of Congress. So medicine, I used to work at NIH. So the National Library of Medicine is inside the NIH campus. Then we have agriculture, we have education and transportation. So all those 4 categories, if books belong to these categories, will be sent to those libraries. And then there's more than 100,000 local libraries in the United States. So if they think any books they might not want to keep at their place, they will send it, distribute it to those places. And then they will also give it to other government organizations, educational institutions like school libraries, or nonprofit organizations. So they don't get them, they don't just throw them away.
I have a question.
Sure, please.
Hi. How do they process that many items a day?
They have people there.
I guess I'm curious how many employees are there to process 22,000 items. That's so many.
That's a great question. I don't know how many people work directly under the Copyright Office. They also receive some pre-publication. So for example, when you publish a book, they, like the one I showed to you was pre-publication. They send 1 copy to me for proofreading. And those kind of books also go there. And sometimes they will use those books. I don't have a picture. I did take a lot of pictures, like they have a children's center and they will get those kind of books. I have several friends, they are catalogers at the Library of Congress. So their job is to get the book and they read the title, they enter the title, and they decide which section what kind of number, series number they should give it to. But that's a great question. Oh, by the way, Lynn, you asked some questions last time. I have the answer for you. Remind me at the end, okay? So the huge book collection, and this is a picture I take in one of their reading rooms. So most of their books are closed shelved, which means you cannot go to the shelf, just grab a book and check it out. No, most of the books, you gave them a request. I'm going to talk about this request system, but reference books are open to the readers. So each reading room have a lot of shelves of reference book. You can go there to see them and bring to the table, but you can't bring them out of the reading room because it's not a circulation library like our local library, like Montgomery County or Chesapeake Bay might have many libraries. So how long is the bookshelf? If you put all the bookshelves next to each other, how long you think that can be? Just have a wild guess.
Around the world.
Right. So Mary, you want to give us
I can't even imagine.
Miles, probably.
Miles, right. 530 miles. That's the distance between Beijing and Shanghai. That's a very long shelf space. That's why they have 4 different places to store them. In addition to those 3 buildings, they have another big building in Maryland to store books. And then they have another one to store all those films and videos. So talking about the video, we call the visual material. So for film, television, and now you probably YouTube video, whatever, they all go to this place called Picard Center in Virginia. You can tell it's a gigantic place there. And so I have another fun fact here. So suppose you pull out, the old film like 16 millimeter film. If you pull out all those films, how long you think that would be?
Yes.
That's 40,000 kilometers. And how long is 40,000 kilometers? That's if you put it along the equator of the whole Earth. That's how many. Right?
Yes.
Right. So that's really, really, really many, 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 many. So they have the largest collection of those films and televisions and videos in the world. Then, if you go there, they have very good services. So they have 2 readers' desks when you first come in. One's downstairs. I'm talking about only the Jefferson Building. One's downstairs, one's upstairs. And then they have brochures or flyers about the Jefferson Building and also about the services. And I think I counted probably a dozen languages. Of course, I put the Chinese in the middle just to show my friend, because I was taking a picture of them for my Chinese book, but they have Spanish, Russian, Portuguese, Hebrew, Korean, Japanese, I think, English, of course, and Spanish, and French, many different languages. And then they have volunteers sitting there, ask you and help you. So if you only want to go in to take a look, you don't need anything. You just go there, have your ID, and when they check you out in, and then you can just take a tour. They have, before the pandemic, they have several tours per day at the Jefferson Building. They have docent to lead you to tour this beautiful building. However, if you want to go to the reading rooms, you need something called a reader's card. So it's very easy to get them. I only listed the Jefferson Building. It's in room LJ. Anybody can show you where it is. You can do pre-register online, but you still have to be there because they're going to take your picture and put on the ID. This ID mine's already expired because it only lasts for 2 years. So if next time when you need it, you just go there, you enter the computer a few information like your address and your phone number and your ID, and they take a picture of you. Within 10-15 minutes, you can get this card. With this card, you can walk into any of the reading rooms. Okay? All right. So they have more than 20 reading rooms. They divided by different categories. So the first category is subject. So if you're interested in studying law, by the way, they have the largest law library in North America because it was established for the Congress. So they have a lot of law-related material. And they have a business reading room. They have a local history and genealogy reading room. That's very interesting. If you want to find your ancestors and their history, that's a very good place to start. And they also have librarians, reference librarians specialized in this area. They can show you where and how to find information. They have a big newspaper and current periodical reading room where you can read up to between 18 months and 24 months newspapers and article journals. After that, they will be sent to be bound. And then they have a big science and technology session. They have actually their science and technology collection is 1/4 of the whole library. They also divided them by language and region. So for example, they have one reading room is African and Middle Eastern. So African, they only include the language. They are not using Roman letters. So for example, some of the colonies in Africa, they still use English or French, and that part is not included there. But at the African languages and Middle Eastern, like Arabic, Persian, will be in this reading room. They have a big Asian reading center, reading room. The background I used last time, Lynn said it looked like Harry Potter's film. That was the Asian reading room. And they have a European, they have a Hispanic. So Hispanic, including, I think, Latin American, except Brazil. Maybe, I think the Portuguese language is in that session as well, and Spain. And then by format, they have many different kinds of things. So for example, geography and map, and microform or performing arts even, and print and photography, and rare books, and special collection, recorded sound, so on and so forth. But if you don't know exactly what you need, and the place to start with will be the main reading room in the Jefferson Building. So you just go there, they will tell you where to go. And most of the time, you probably can borrow the books you needed through them. When I say borrow, is just to put in your request, they will put the book on your desk for you. All right, so this is the beautiful, beautiful reading room. Even you don't want to get the reader's card, you can go during the tour, you can go to the very top of this reading room. From there, it's glass protected, but you can look down, you can take a picture of this beautiful reading room. It has many seats surrounding the reading room. These are all bookshelves. I'm going to show you later. It has 60,000 reference books around this corridors. When you go there, this is, of course, is taken by the special photographer Carol Highsmith, so nobody's there. But usually when you walk in, you came in from here, there will be a library assistant. They are not librarians, they're assistant. They will talk to you. You can tell them what book you need and where to go. They will help you. And then if you look up, the ceiling are painted with beautiful, beautiful murals. It's each of them represent a culture, not necessarily a country at that time, but at least a culture. But it's all Western. It didn't include China or India. So there's Greece, there's Judean, and then Egypt, America, England, France. We have to keep in mind when it was built. It was the end of 19th century, right? They also have beautiful, beautiful sculptures. So some of them are famous musicians like Beethoven or artists, probably Shakespeare was there, and also like this particular one represents signs. So if you're just sitting there and read and you're a little tired, you look up, you see all those beautiful art. And then the service in the reading room, as I mentioned, they have reference books. They have a huge, gigantic dictionary. In the old days, it's really helpful. Now you probably bring your little laptop, then you can search, right? But the most hopeful people there are the reference librarians. They each of them at least has a master's degree. Some of them has PhDs, and they specialize in different areas like science or history or genealogy or law. So you can go to ask for their help. I found them very, very helpful. One time I need to write a thesis. I was taking a writing class, so I thought about writing about tofu. So I went there. To my surprise, they even have a book which has 2,000 entries. So this book is a catalog of all the publications about tofu you can think of, as old as a Chinese article, like almost 2,000 years old. At least they cataloged it. It was very interesting. And then also remember we said there's 3 buildings, right? And from the ground, you can't see they have connections, but underneath, like underground, they all connected to each other. So this is the Jefferson building. So there's a tunnel from Jefferson to Adams because many books are stored in Adams. If you're in the main reading room, you will need books from there. So within half an hour, they probably just take it to you. So all those tunnels has 2 sides. One is for people to walk, the other is for the carts. So constantly, if you walk there, you will see all those carts, people pushing those carts from one building to the other. It's either the book you wanted to read or the book you already finished reading is going back. So all these 3 buildings are connected through those tunnels, and there's another tunnel goes to Congress, go to Capitol Hill, because the congressional staff will constantly come here to borrow books or return material. So all of these it's also connected to the Cannon building. So it's very well connected underground. Some of my friends who work there during lunchtime, they would take this tunnel for exercise. You can walk miles. This is something I think at your age, you probably all used when you were younger. It's called a serial catalog, right? So when we were young, when we go to a library, what you do is you open those little drawers and then you take out the cards. And so I, being a Chinese, I was curious, do they have Chinese books? Yes, to my surprise, or not so surprised. They have books published in China in the 1930s or 1920s. This is specifically about rural education. I even heard of this author. He's my grandfather's acquaintance. Anyway, so they still kept these. But since the 1970s, they already changed to an electronic search system. So they no longer need this, but they keep them as an antique. And so you can, this particular one, I think is in the Adams building. They kept some of them here and there as antique. You can go there, check it out. And I once discovered a system, no book told me about it. So one time when I was there, I was telling them I was writing this book. I need to make some Xerox copies. So the staff took me to their back room. Next to the copy machine, I saw something like this. I said, what's this? Oh, she said, oh, let me share with you. This is an old retrieve system. So you can see, this is a brass attached to the wall, and then you have a little hole here, and then you have a big hole, and then you have a lot of holes here. She said, what in the old days, if you need a book, you write it in a piece of paper, and then you put this paper in not you, the librarian's assistant will put it in a little tube. And then they put this tube, they drop it down 4 or 5 floors down to the basement where the book stores. And then the technician there receive this tube, open the tube, I'll say, oh, Lynn wants to read about the biography of Lincoln. And then they will go to the shelf. So they receive this through this little hole, and then they will put this to a shelf or a little elevator. You know, in wealthy family, you have this kind of thing, like between the kitchen and the dining room, right? And then through that elevator, this book will come up from here. And then the technician or the assistant will get those books and then bring it to your table. So all the reading table are labeled. So when you were there, they gave you a number. They said, please go to sit at number 588. And then once they get your book, they will bring to your table. That's still true today when you request a book, but you don't use this system anymore. You use the electronic. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So that was my own discovery. So I wrote into my book. I thought it was very interesting. So the Asian reading room was the picture like last time you have seen, has more than 200 languages and dialects. What's the difference between a language and a dialect? Can you tell me? So dialect is like if you are from Boston or from Alabama, you have a dialect, right? But you still speak American English. In China, we have Cantonese, we have Beijing, people from Shanghai. We all speak different dialects. Sometimes the dialects is so hard to understand. I think I know more German than I know Cantonese, but our written language is still the same. So dialect is not a language, it's just heavy accent maybe. So they have more than 200 languages and dialects. They have 4 million items and a third of them are Chinese. It has the largest Chinese, Japanese, and Korean collection outside of Asia. They have the largest Tibetan collection in the world. And I'd like to share with you something very rare. This is called a Yuan Liu encyclopedia. Yuan Liu is the name of a Ming Dynasty emperor. He was ruled during this time. So during this 3 years, he said, I would like you to assemble an encyclopedia of all the most important publication in Chinese. I want that to be done. So what they did is 22,877 sections and bound it in 11,000 volumes. So altogether has 370 million characters. So you can imagine how big. I have I don't have it behind me, is the Encyclopedia Britannica. That's only how many books are here? It's only occupied one bookshelf. But you can imagine gigantic encyclopedia like this. They only printed, I think, 4 sets. It's stored at different places, but during the war, during the fire, only 400 volumes left among all of these. It's distributed in 8 different countries. China has the biggest collection, and LC has 41 of them, which is quite unusual, like 10% of the existing volumes is here in the library. But unless you're a very special scholar, I asked my Chinese friend who is a librarian in this department, he said he could not even access it without a good reason, because it's so rare and they want to protect it. So you might ask, how did all the Chinese collection come to us? Well, in 1830s or before, there was a person, his name is Cushion. He was our first ambassador to China. He was there. The emperor didn't want to see him, so he was first visited the island, I think Macau. So they let him stay there for quite a few months. So he started to study Chinese and Manchurian, and then he started to go to bookstores, and he over the years, he collected quite a few Chinese books. After his death, his family donated to the Library of Congress. That was the first donation. And some other diplomat did the same. And then in 1867, the Congress passed a bill called the International Book Exchange Bill, and they started to exchange with other countries. So they sent some books to China. As a gesture, one of the Qing Dynasty emperor, this is several hundred years later than that encyclopedia, that's a different emperor. And he said, okay, you gave us some books, and let me give you some books. So he selected 10 works, 900 some volumes. And these are some of them. Like this one is about, it's an encyclopedia about plants. And this one is about agriculture. This one is about acupuncture, so on and so forth. I saw these, you can see. So I asked them, they show me one of them, and you can see there's a certificate says a gift from from the Chinese government. When I donate books to them, they will put something like this too. It's a gift from so and so. So if you donate a book, they will put it on, and they also send you a letter and Miss so and so, thank you so much for donating a book to us. Also, they only receive, they never weed out. So if it's accepted, it's there forever. At least so far, it's the policy. Last time somebody asked me what happened if we, I think it was Susan. Susan, I'm waiting for you to come back. I think last time might be you asked the question, what happened if we have too many books, right? And also, I think somebody asked if they ever get rid of books if they already decided to keep it as their collection. So the answer to the second question is no, they never weed out, at least so far. Even after they digitize the book, they still keep the original book. And because they have so many books coming in per day, they are talking about another plan to build another building. Where and when is still the question. We have to wait for Congress to approve that plan. Did I answer that question? I think I did. All right, let's move on. I'd like to, there are so many Chinese things I'd like to share, but I decided, given the sake of time, I only share something very rare. So this is one of the earliest printed material the Library of Congress collected, which is a 975 CE, and that's a Song Dynasty, so it's more than 1300 years old Buddhist sutra. So it's a very long, actually it's a long, very long hand scroll. This is only part of it. It's a wood block print. That means for each page, you have to carve a wood block and then you print on the page. So it's not movable print. Although Chinese also invented the movable print, but these are wood block print. And the story behind this is even more interesting. So I did some research on this. Actually, in my mother's hometown, Hangzhou, have you been to China? Some of you, if you've been to China, Hangzhou is a very famous tourist city, has a beautiful lake, not too far from Shanghai. So by the lake of the West Lake, it's a beautiful lake, there is a pagoda. This pagoda is called Leifeng Pagoda. It was built in year 975, and the reason why they built the pagoda is to store those very precious Buddha's sutra. It's like the Bible for Christians, right? So they bury it underneath this pagoda. But in year 1924, this pagoda fell apart. My grandfather was a famous writer at that time. He even wrote an article. I remember read his article about the falling of this pagoda. So after they fell, and they digged. This is a modern picture, but that's all it's left now. They discovered all those very old Buddha Sutra. This one is one of them. So later in the early 20th century, some Americans went there and they got it. So finally, the Library of Congress purchased it. So this particular sutra became the earliest printed material in the Library's Congress collection. Did you get it? Did I make it clear? Okay.
Yes.
So it's so if you're interested in the Chinese rare book collection, you can just Google it. They will tell you more about that. All right. The Science and Business Reading Room. It's not in the Jefferson Building, but in the Adams Building. Remember, I showed you some of the murals, very interesting historical murals. It's in this building. See, this is all the murals we talk about. Here is a portrait of Jefferson, I think, or Washington. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's more likely Jefferson, if I remember correctly. And that's the most busy reading room. See, this is the picture I took purposely. Usually they don't like you to take pictures in the reading room to protect privacy. So I don't take any pictures of any visible face. But you can see there are a lot of people going there to read, because 1/4 of the Library of Congress collection of books and journals are in the science and technology area. All right, they also develop a lot of very useful material for education. So if you have relatives or friends who are teachers, you can go there. So for example, they designed something called the Science Tracer Bullet. It's mainly designed for teachers about how to teach science. So, and this is like a everyday little quizzes, like a mystery about different scientific questions for young students. So for example, says why pepper makes you sneeze, that kind of question. Science questions for science teachers. If any two snowflakes are the same, or it's for probably elementary school teacher. They also has the world's largest map collection. So I went there, and one of the librarians, he actually he wrote several books about a very important map I'm going to share with you soon. And he was so kind. He took me to the storage area and showed me something you usually cannot see. So for example, this is a world map by Ptolemy, and he was active during the 2nd century. So based on his idea, his vision about the world in the 15th century, 1478, they produced a map. So this map is called the Ptolemy map. See, they even have these angels, they blow wind to the earth. It was very interesting. But notice something, there's no America here, right? There's no this continent, because at that time they did not know the existence of the New World. And another very interesting map that's called Hondius map, because the person who published it, that's his name. That's about more than 100 years later, in the 1630s. That was already after the discovery of the New World. So this is the first printed map of both the Old and the New World. So you can see America here, right? Both North and South here. It's relatively to the scale of what we know today. But before that, in between these two maps, I'm going to show you another map. It's a famous map. It's called America's Birth Certificate. Why is called that? This one, notice it's published in 1507. It's called Waldseemüller's map. It was, I think, printed in Germany and later get lost, and then years later was discovered in a monastery in France, if I remember correctly. Anyway, this the librarian who took me there, he actually published 2 books about this. This map is so important because if you look at this person here, it's a person, his name is Amerigo Vespucci. And why our continent is not called Columbus, but America? Do you know? That's because
Because of him.
Because of him. Because when Columbus arrived America, he never realized until his death, he didn't know he reached America. He thought he reached some island outside India. That's why we have the Caribbean islands called the West Indies. And he thought he was in Asia. He never realized he was in America. Then this person, Amerigo, when he came, he realized Columbus made a mistake. Actually, this is a new piece of land or newly discovered land. Of course, it exists a long time ago. So on this map is the first time America appeared. And also you can see in their mind that at that time, America looked like this, very skinny, very narrow, because they haven't explored a big inland yet. All right, I also like to share with you some of very old Chinese map. These are carved on like a stela, like a piece of rock, and these are rubbings of that of that very old piece of stone. That stone was made in 1136. So this is divided to 500 little pieces. Each square represent a area, and many of them even have names of the area. And the most amazing thing is you can see there are 2 rivers. One is the Yellow River, one is the Yangtze River. Keep in mind, this was produced early 12th century. If you look at a map today, here's the Yellow River, here's the Yangtze River. They were so accurate. It's almost 1,000 years old, 900 some years old, right? 800, 900 years old. They are so accurate. So you can imagine the Chinese did a very good job of measuring. Of course, some of these shape changes a little bit. For example, where the Yellow River goes out to the sea, at that time was here, but Yellow River changed its flow many times. Now it's moved much north. So it's just so amazing when I see this. Now let's take a look at how the Koreans saw the world. This one's not that old. This one's 18th century, 1760. That's what they see the world is. So here's Korea, which is accurate. And here's Japan, which is relatively accurate. And here's China. Here's China, okay? Here's China. But all the rest of them are like, you can't read, but I can. This is called the Five Peoples country. This is called the Big Mountain country. This is called a country for giants. And that one is called people for gentle. This is a country for gentlemen. It's just very, very, very limited. So their view about the world, they are in the center, they in China are in the center, all the rest of them just little countries with legendary people. Like this is for very big people's country, this is for a gentleman's country, this is for 5 people's country. It's very interesting. So we take for granted today, we have GPS, we have Google Map, we know every inch, like even our house, we can see it on the map. But think about 300 years ago, people's view about the world still looked like this. All right. I also, in my book, I was first dedicated 1 chapter to maps. And later I thought, oh, there's so many interesting things. So I divided into 2 chapters. So this is a map. Yesterday I showed this to my husband. He said, why a powder horn is doing something here? This is not a regular powder horn. The powder horn is for gunpowder, right? In the old days, during the Civil War, they were carrying horns with them because they need constantly, they didn't have bullets, so they have to feed the gun with the powder. And some of these officers are very clever because if you carry a paper-made map, it get wet, it get torn. So they carved all the areas important map on their horn so they will never lose it. So they carry it all the time with them. So the Library of Congress has 6 or 7 or 8 powder horn maps. So for example, this particular one he showed me, I believe, if I remember correctly, is about New York area, New York State. That's very interesting. And then I saw something else, you know, Chinese like to do landscape painting, and they have this landscape of painting of a place along the Yangtze River called Chengdu. I have been to that place. It's almost like a tourist map. So for example, here is a Dufu Caotang, which is the house of a very famous Tang Dynasty poet. He used to live there. This house still exists today. It's called Dufu Caotang. So you can tell this is like our tourist map. You go to Disneyland, they give you a map like, oh, here is scenery number 1. This is scenery number 2. It's very interesting. And more interestingly, they print the map on a fan. So this fan has 2 sides. This side is the map of China, except the Taiwan part is a little out of portion. And then you flip on the other side of the fan. So it's a fan like this, you know. So they printed first on the fan, and then they printed the names of all those counties and villages on the other side. Probably not villages, all the little towns and counties on the other side. It's very accurate, actually. So you can carry your map with you like our GPS today. You can use it and then you can read your map. It's so interesting. Sorry. We all know the Library of Congress has a treasure. What is the treasure is the Bible, right? But before we see the Gutenberg Bible, we see another one. It's called the Giant Bible of Mainz. It took people 2 years and 3 months to write this Bible because it's handwritten on 459 sheets of skin. Okay, and it says it used 2 tons of ink to write this. But when Gutenberg invented the movable type, by the way, that was metal. Actually, the Chinese invented the movable type using wood much, much earlier. But in 1455, they really started a revolution because now you don't have to write down every word by hand anymore. You can just use all those movable types. Then you can put them in a set and then in a big tray, and then you can print them. So that was a huge revolution that influenced completely changed our ways of communication. So after that, books can be printed, everybody can get hold of a copy, and that it really accelerate the advance of our culture so much, especially in the Western world. So if you haven't been to the Library of Congress, once you go into the Jefferson Building, go all the way to the back, you will see these two books on each side. And there's only 3 copies of the Gutenberg Bible left, intact copies, and we have one of them there. All right, rare book collection. Rare books, we have the largest collection in North America. We can't say we have in the world because Europeans probably have more and Chinese probably have more. We have 700,000 rare books. I would like to share some with you. One is the oldest books, I put on a quotation mark here, the oldest book in the world. What are they?
They're stones, they're tablets.
The tablet, exactly. They are the Sumer cuneiform clay tablets. Why it's called cuneiform is because when the clay is still wet, you use a reed, and when you press down, you have this wider impression, and then when you lift up your reed, it becomes narrower. So all those marks are like that. So you have this wider start, and then the other part of them becomes narrower and narrower. And this particular one is a balance, book balance, it's an account balance. It's used by a CPA at that time. How much money do I owe you? That kind of stuff. If you're interested, you can go to this website. You can see more. This particular one, they said is either 2200 to 1900 BCE. So it's about 4,000 years old. And I would like to share with you something you probably never heard of. It's called the Dongba language. It's a living fossil. It's a language very similar to Egyptian.
Lost the sound.
Sorry?
Lost the sound for a moment.
Oh.
It's back.
Oh, okay. It says my internet connection is not stable. It's not raining. I don't know. Can you hear me, Lynn? Okay.
No, we can hear you. I've lost internet a couple of times tonight so far.
Okay. Okay. So this is, it's a minority in China. They are closer to Tibetans. So they have this language. It's written in this way. However, unlike the ancient Egyptian language or ancient cuneiform, they still have people can read this. So they have in their tribes, they still have the senior leaders. They can still read them. So that's why we call it a living fossil, right? So it's the library has a collection of them as well. Now I'd like to share with you one of the smallest books in the world. Elsie has one. So this, you are all grown up in this country. You probably all know this little children's song called Old King Cole. Have you heard of that? Right. So what they did is, here is a penny, and then they can put 3 books on this little card. I apologize for this. I can't see this book. I can only rely on their picture. So their picture is a little blur. Just think about how big this piece of card is. It's smaller than a penny. On this piece of card, you can lay out 3 copies of this book. So each of the pages is only 2 millimeter by 2 millimeter. And then there's 12 pages. So you can have laid out all these 12 pages in three copies in a row. So they called it the smallest printed book in the world, at least in 1985. Now it's almost 40 years later. I don't know whether somebody else produced another one. But this is very impressive. All right. They also have the world's largest comic book collection. They have 12,000 titles, more than 140 items. According to them, the oldest one they have is the February 1936 issue, Popular Comics, which is a journal. I could not get hold of the picture, but on eBay, I found one. It's 1 month later, in March. This one sells for almost $500 just for this, just for this one. So go back to your grandma's attic. If you find one of this comic, you might be able to sell on eBay or give it to Library of Congress better. So they have a very large collection of comic books. Then they also has a huge collection of posters and photographs. So I gave you 2 examples here. So they have 17.5 million visual images. So these are some posters. I don't know anything about this weak fancy headbands. Do you?
No.
You never heard of it. Probably your grandmother knows about it. And this very famous picture, the migrant mother, you probably all seen.
Right.
This is in their collection. This is in 1936. So if you want to look for photograph or posters, that's the place to go. All
So
right.
they're originals?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Not only that, many of them has been digitized now. So you can look online. You can even download them.
How do they decide what photographs that they keep?
That's a great question. That's a great question. They have some kind of policy to collect historical important photograph, no question. But snapshot today, you submit to them, they probably don't, unless you're a famous photographer or something. So for example, this Miss Carol Highsmith, they have if you go to their website, they have a total library of hers, because I think she should allow the pictures not only about the Library of Congress, but also other important buildings like Jefferson's home or the Congress or other important government buildings. I suspect probably the government hired her to do so, and then she gave up her copyright and she just donated all of them to the country, to the nation.
So they give up their copyright when they give the Library of Congress their photos?
So like, notice if I use her photo, I always credit her. So she agreed that we can use it, but we need to mention not the copyright. She's the photographer, but she gave up the copyright. So if I use her photo in my book, I don't need to pay her anything, but except I mentioned about her name. All right. The world's most extensive newspaper collection, like I said, they have a newspaper and journal reading room. So they have 70,000 titles retained for at least 18 to 24 months. After this, older material, they will send to be bound or on microfilm. So you can see the past 2 years and 1.5 years journals, or I just give you an example in the Chinese reading room. Since I can read Chinese, they have, just in the Chinese reading room, they have 13,000 journal titles and 12,000 newspaper titles. Of course, some of them are not on display there. You have to go search, and some of the most up-to-date one, they have the electronic copy, but they have to pay money to the Chinese database to subscribe to them. So they have daily subscription to the newspaper, important newspaper in China or in Taiwan, in any Chinese language journals. Anyway, so the local history and genealogy, they have more than 650 cities and towns of their information online. They also has family trees. So if, for example, I think this is the Li family, I think, if I remember correctly. See these. So if you want to find out your ancestor history, you can go there, consult a librarian. They might be able to help you to find out something. They also have this very interesting telephone book collection. When I was taken to the back, to their back storage area, I noticed, I said, wow, you have so many yellow books here. What's this for? It turns out they have the largest US historical telephone books. They used to be, now probably not anymore. They used to receive 8,000 volumes per year from the US. They also hold 124,000 phone books. They also have many foreign ones. So for example, I took a picture of these I can read, this is all from Japan, of their telephone books. So I said, why telephone books? They said, actually, if you study history, you want to trace, say, Susan, you want to know your great-grandfather, where did they live, which town they live, and where they moved from. You can find them in those books, right? You can find their names, their telephone number, and their address. Of course, today you can just search online, but in those days, it's very useful for historians. Music collection.
Excuse me, Yuan, I think that with like when I work with my ancestry.com or family search, sometimes that's how I find people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now it's all online, but before this era, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, if you want to find somebody, it's not that easy, right?
Well, they must have digitized them by now, because they'll come up all the way back to my grandparents' day as to what their phone number was, or the actual street address like they used to show.
Right. These are a little bit obsolete today, but some of the books, like foreign telephone books in Japan, I don't know, some of the country, I know Chinese scholars came to Library of Congress, search for like county history. So each county, say I live in Montgomery County, we have a country book, right? Many of them are being burned during the Cultural Revolution, so they don't have it anymore. So they have to come here to look for them. And Library of Congress has a large collection of Chinese county history. So it's very valuable. Anyway, music collection. They have several very expensive and famous violin and viola made in Italy, like the Stradivari, or they also have concert. Before the pandemic, you can go there. I think they have monthly concert. They also broadcast their concert on the radio. They also has a huge collection, more than 8 million sheets of music.
Oh,
I saw one time when I was there, they have a little exhibition case, and what I saw there was a piece of music by Mozart. So they just have this really, really amazing collection. And some of these, I have a friend who repairs violin, and he said he was hired there to evaluate and tune their very expensive violin or repair some of them. He said, he told me he touched all of these when he was there. It was
I bet they have some. I bet they have some amazing pianos.
Yes, they do. They do. So they have also a Copeland collection. So if you're interested in music, that's also a very interesting place to go.
They have a concert hall.
Yes, not too big. Actually, I almost put that picture there. I went to their concert hall. Not too big, but you can go there. Yeah.
Ah.
Probably a few hundred. Probably a few. There are a few hundred seats there. A small theater. They also have exhibition. These are all their online exhibitions. So if you cannot come, but at least you can explore online. For example, the Jefferson collection I shared with you last time, you can explore them online. All exhibitions, current, past, traveling exhibitions, whatever. And they also has a lot of events. I don't know, these are, so for example, this is still during the pandemic. They have lectures, symposia. Nowadays, probably it's combination format. Could be some on Zoom, could be some in person. So they also have a reader center, young reader center. This is not part of the library reading room. This is independent. So their collection does not go to the library. Actually, the other way around. When the library receives some children's book, they will just donate to this place. And this place is a paradise for children. They accept people like as young as 6 months old, up to 16. The reason why they established this is to be able to get a reader's card, you have to be 16 years old or older. So those kids cannot go to the reading room. That's why they established this one. I've been there several times. You can go in, you can play games. This is the poster when you first walk in, and then you can lay it on the floor. You can play with your parents. In the other reading room, you can't talk, right? You can't disturb other readers. But here, the mother can read books to you. You can do whatever comfortable to read. And so these are the pictures I took before the pandemic. I don't know their policy now. I think they are probably reopened now. So there's a lot of young kids, like they have special books for 1 year old, and the edge of the book is all rounded, so it will not get hurt when you reopen the book. And more interestingly, they teach you how to establish a home library, for example. So they have many different guides, and even in Spanish, in English, they will say, oh, if you are 3 year birth to pre-K or kindergarten to second grade, the third to fifth, sixth to eighth, age different, what kind of book you need to select. They also had a area, they will have this preprint book. They donated from those publishers, and they will distribute these to several schools in DC. They let the children read those books and select the books they think the library should have. They can vote. That was a very interesting program. And also they have multilingual. So for example, their Harry Potter has many, many different languages. They even had one in the language for children blind to read. They also have like children's book in Chinese. The book, the library really serve the patron. As I said, one of the functions is to serve the blind. So they not only have books in Braille, they also have audio and large print, and they will lend you the device to listen to the books. So even during the pandemic, they distribute so many, like 20 some million copies of books to the blind or visually impaired people. So for example, these are books I saw in the children's center. See this one page, you have both the parents or the teacher can read, and then they will teach the blind kids to read. They can touch, so they can learn Braille. They also have so many services. They respond to many reference requests. If you have a question, you can write to them, called Ask a Librarian. So if you have specific information question, they usually answer your question within 24 hours. That's what I've been told. They might tell you, sorry, we can't answer that question, but they usually address to your question. They also have many on-site visitors. This is 2021. Keep in mind that's still during the pandemic. If it's before, they might have, I think, up to 1 million visitors. Then they have many online visits. They issued so many copyright registration. That means in 1 year, they register so many. And then they circulate physical items for use, either inside the library or outside the library. Outside library meaning went to Congress. Or if you work there, you can borrow books home. Or they also performed so many preservation work. Some of them are done inside the library. Some of them are sent out for contractors to do, like those very rare books or maps that need to be fixed. It's just really impressive. So now you might want to say, how do I search for a book? I'm using my own book here. It's easy. So I just type in my name. There's not very many name as mine. And then I type in the English title or the pinyin, which is the spelling system to spell out Chinese. I found it. I was very impressed. They not only have the English title, they have the Chinese title, they also have the pinyin title, they have the publisher in both pinyin and Chinese. It's extremely impressive, quick too. So you just go to catalog.lc.gov index, you can search any book you want, like you search in any library system. So here again, I have a little advertisement for my book. If you think some of your Chinese friends might be interested, it's available on Amazon. You just type in my name, and Touring the Library of Congress, A World of Knowledge. You just type my name and say Touring the Library of Congress, you can find it, because that's the only one I wrote in Chinese, which is selling in this country.
When are you going to have the translated version?
I actually, after I talked to you, because this is the first time I did the translation, because I gave many talks before in Chinese, but this time, because to meet your need, I translate into English. Do you think, Lynn, this is worth translating to English? I haven't seen any book like this about the Library of Congress in English.
Yeah, it's worth.
You
I
think so?
certainly would
Yes.
go for it.
All right, maybe some of you can help me and we can work together and see if you can. I write pretty well in Chinese. I'm building a lot of stories and humors, but English is not my native language. So if I write in English, I need somebody who is an editor, or she or is a good writer to help me to polish, to make it more readable and interesting.
I can
Anyway,
Sure.
so we're supposed to finish at 6 o'clock. We have a few more minutes. I'd like to share with you some information pages. So if you want to search their collections, or I list a few pages, you can take a screenshot, or I can email Lynn this particular slide. You want to see their collection, map collection, or see their online exhibition, or ask a librarian. You just type ask a librarian, Library of Congress will probably bring you to this page. And also, if you plan to come here physically, they have a place called Plan Your Visit, or if you are interested really doing research here, they have a website for you to do research. Or if you want to come here to check some books, you can, I would advise you to do the reservation a day before, so by the time you get here, the book is here, because if the books are stored in Maryland, it takes a day to get the book to you. If you want to take a tour, I highly recommend maybe Lynn can organize a group tour. Contact them, see if they now start to accept group tour, to have a guided tour of the Jefferson Building. But I think my tour online probably
I think you've covered everything.
I covered, but if you come here, you can see it in your own eyes, especially the beauty of the building, the art and the architecture. And don't forget to check out something I mentioned they probably don't tell you, like the interesting head outside the building, and a lot of other details they probably don't mention. So it's my great pleasure to share my little learning experience about the Library of Congress. And next time when you come to town, don't forget to visit the library.
Thank you very much. This was wonderful.
Oh,
It
thank
really
you.
was. Thank you very much.
It was really.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mary and Jody and Fred, can you open your screen? At least I can see your.
My
smile.
camera's not working today.
Oh.
Worked
okay.
last time. I don't know why it's not working today. It's lit. I'm looking right at it. It's lit, but I can't get it to recognize.
All right. Very
Well,
good.
we have a few, but you lost a few of us, but I think that might have been just because of the scheduling when we had to shift the dates back.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we recorded, because that way then everyone can
Great.
see. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much, Yuan. It's always fun to listen to your programs. You get so excited about everything.
And thank you very much
Too.
for
Thank you.
thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to future collaboration if you are interested. I have a lot
Absolutely.
of other things to share. I'm currently, you can probably stop the recording and we can chat a little more. Thank you.